Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. It's April and you know what that means. We are working on our birth flower of the month series today. And April's birth month flower is either a daisy or a sweet pea, and today we are going to be working on a daisy. So let's jump in. Okay, so today we are drawing the daisy. I have just a regular pencil here, and I also have my mono drawing pens by Tombow. I have them in size 03 and 01. Those are just the sizes of the nib. I like to use my 03, which is the bigger one for the outline, and then the 01 for the shading, but you can use whatever drawing tool you have. It does not have to be pens like these at all. And I just have my pencil and a kneaded eraser, and now we can start. Okay, so I'm just gonna draw some circles of where I want my daisies to kind of be. So I'm gonna draw kind of like an oval over here, okay, because it's gonna be a different perspective, and then one that's a bit more open like that, okay? And I'm just gonna draw the center of my daisy like that, and then an oval center. Now we're gonna bring it down a little bit like that. And this technique just helps with that perspective of your flowers. Sorry. So you can just draw a basic circle, and it will, if you move the center of the flower down, it will give you a different perspective. So here, the petals will be longer on the side, which means it's more open that way. So you're seeing the longer petals, and then the center would be down here, if that makes sense. So I'm just gonna start drawing just some shapes for the petals. And you don't want them all to be uniform. You kind of want them to be different sizes, maybe a bit curved. Okay, don't worry about it being perfect. But the point is they get shorter as they come to this side. Okay. Maybe they can be pointing off a little bit in a different direction a bit, because it's nature, it's not perfect, right? Like that. And then these ones. We can also have some behind too. So I'm just doing the first layer. Maybe we can have one coming this way. Like that, and then we can have some behind, which we can also do later. Okay, so you know what, I'm also gonna have, I think, a little bud, like it hasn't bloomed yet. So I'm just gonna draw a little circle here, like it hasn't bloomed, just to give me a reference. And then I'm just gonna put where my stems are. So it would be coming from the middle. I think it's called the stamen. And you're just gonna imagine a line, and you're gonna start drawing it coming down from the center of that part, okay? And then same from here. Here's the center. Imagine it, and put your pencil down to the paper, like that. And then here we go, same thing. Like that, okay? And then if you want, you can do the leaves in pencil first. So they're thinner leaves and they're more jagged. So you're just gonna do like these little jagged lines like that. Okay, and we can do more detail on those later. Now I'm gonna bring in my pen and we're gonna start. So I'm gonna start by doing some dots for the center here. You can do them a bit, or just like little circles. Okay, and it's gonna be darker around the base here. Then the dots are gonna get a bit more sparse up here. And then a darker in the center again. And this just helps create kind of like shadow and dimension a bit. like that, okay? Okay, and then we're gonna do the same thing on this one. Little circles or squiggles, make it darker around the edge. And then a bit more sparse, a bit up. And then darker again towards the center, like that. Okay. Okay, so now we can start drawing our petals. So I'm just gonna go over the petals that we did. And make them, try not to make them as smooth as you can. If they're a little bit different in shape, I find that makes them look a bit more realistic. And then you can do some behind. Okay, and then the same on these ones. Again, having some behind. You don't have to have them behind everywhere, like that. Just gonna darken up around here a bit. And then for our little bud area, just a little bit more rough at the top. You can draw your stems. And your leaves. So this one is like a side view, and then you can just have a little peekaboo of the other side of that leaf there. Again, like that. Maybe we'll have one folded over. So just pointing it down, like so. And we'll just leave it at that first. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure your ink is dry before you start erasing. I've had that where I've smudged my ink before, so. Okay, so of course with my luck, my eraser left behind some residue because it's so old. But I'm just gonna keep on going because I'm not wasting this. Okay, so now we're gonna do some shading. And it's fairly easy with this. You're just gonna have lines coming up the middle of each petal and also from the top a little bit, okay? You're just gonna do that on each petal. Okay, so as you can see, for some of the ones that are behind, I made it a little bit darker just to show a bit more shadow because there would be a shadow casted from those top petals. So just a little bit of a shadow. And then on this little bud here, we're just gonna darken the bottom. Like that. And then for the stems, just very minimal shading, Just darkening up some of those lines where they hit where the flowers are. And then for these leaves, nothing too crazy. Just some lines wherever you feel, like that. And there you go. There is your simple line drawing of the daisy. Okay, so now we are going to be painting our daisies with watercolor. So I have my Arches watercolor paper, my Winsor & Newton professional watercolors today, my Princeton snap brush in a size 6, and we're ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the center. Let's see how this goes. Really, really light wash of cadmium yellow. And I'm just going to plot where I want my daisies to be. So I'm going to have, let's do the same kind of thing that we did for the ink drawing. So I'm going to do an oval here. Okay, we'll do a perspective kind of like we did for the other one. And then a more front-facing one here. Okay. Just like that. And we just want a really light wash. Okay, and we'll do more detail on that in a bit. We're going to move to the petals. So for white petals, you want to use either a light gray or, you know, a light yellow or just something. Every white object that you paint with watercolor has an undertone of something. It could be blue, like I said, gray, whatever. So it's really up to you to pick. You could do a really light blue, light gray. I think I'm going to take a bit of Payne's gray and we're going to lighten it so much, like really light wash, like barely even there. Okay, so you put a little bit on your brush, then you water it down. And I'm just going to, like, you can barely even see it, but once it dries, you'll see it a bit better. Just start painting the petals going around. Okay, really roughly. It's like barely there gray almost. Maybe leave a little bit of white space in the petals if you can. I don't even know if you guys can see this. Okay, and we're just doing it rough. I'm not filling in the petals completely. Just doing the shape and leaving some white space in that shape. Like that. Okay. Then I'm going to take a bit more of my Payne's gray, just a bit more, and I'm just going to tap kind of where they connect to that yellow part, just a little bit, like that. Maybe even bring some of it up. Then I'm going to take some of my black. I'm going to water that down because I want that color gray. Payne's gray is a bit more on the blue side, but I want it more on the just like plain kind of cool gray, not cool gray, just a gray. And I'm going to also tap that. I'm going to tap that. Okay, just a little bit to get that blue gray and just a regular gray in there as well. Okay. I'm going to add some lines up here, like that. Okay, and now I'm going to leave that. We're going to move on to the side view one. I'm going to do long petals up here. Excuse me, even lighter. Like that. And just like the drawing, make them rough, make them pointing different directions, pointing a bit more down as they come across the side here. Leave some white space, and then they become shorter as they reach around the side. Okay, maybe some are pointing up, some are pointing down. Like that. I'm going to grab some more of my color, go right at the base of those. Like that. Bring some color up, maybe some lines. I don't know if you can hear my son throwing a major tantrum right now. We're at such a fun stage. Such a fun stage with him. He's so cute and so smart, but then these tantrums are like, oh my goodness. You're crazy. Okay, so now we're gonna wait for that to dry, and then we will do some more lines and detail. Right now, maybe I will do the stems. So I'm gonna have it coming behind. Like that. And then from this one, coming down like that. Okay, so we can work on stems while the petals are drying. And I'm not letting them touch the petals. I don't want them to bleed. I usually like when petals and stuff bleed, but this time I'm just gonna try and keep it simple. And we can do some leaves. So I'm just gonna bring a line up and do some jagged edge leaves like this, making it really rough. Don't and then I'm going to just darken it up with a bit more sap green. Sorry, I'm using sap green, if you guys didn't know that. Like that. And then I'm going to take some Hooker's Green Dark, which is a bit darker of a green, and I'm just going to drop it in. Like that. Okay, and so we're going to wait for this to completely dry, and then we will come back and start doing a bit more of the detail. Okay, so now that our first layer is completely dry, we can go back in on those petals with a bit more color. And if you want to use a smaller brush too, you can use that. And we're just going to do just like the line drawing, just drawing some little lines. I might add a bit of the black light gray for this. Coming from the petals and the tips of the petals there, okay? And a bit darker towards the center, like that. That, like that. Just some lines like that, okay? And then I might go behind some of these ones for where those petals that were behind would be. Just gonna make it a bit darker there, and then just leave a bit of white space at the top of those petals maybe. Just making it a bit darker in between those petals just to kind of separate them. Like that, okay? And we're gonna do the same thing on this one. Oops, that's a little dark. Just mop it up. The tips of the petals, remember. Just using really, really light pressure for this. That's the key to making these really small lines. Thin. Like that. Also, if you wanted to use the black ink for this and just kind of mix the two mediums of ink and watercolor, you could always do that, or you could just paint with watercolor over your ink drawing. That would work too. That. Okay. I feel like this one's a bit darker, but that's okay. go back in and make it darker here a bit too. Okay. Now for the center of our daisy, I'm just going to go back over with the yellow again, very little bit. That's a bit too much. Just brighten up that base. Okay. And then, just like the ink drawing, we're going to make it darker around the bottom and the center a bit. So I'm going to actually use a bit of my cadmium red, which is like an orangey color. And I'm just going to let it bleed there and in the middle a bit. You know what, maybe I'll take a little bit of yellow ochre. That's a nice yellow for this too. I'm going to try, actually, hold on, I'm going to lift this all up again. I want to make it a bit more separated with a bit more highlights. I'm just going to go back in with my yellow. There we go. Collect any extra water like that. Then go back in with my yellow ochre around the base. There we go. Not as much bleeding action this time. That and like that. Okay. Add a bit more yellow. And then I'm going to add some brown. So I have some burnt umber here. I'm going to mix it a bit with that orangish color that I had. And I'm just going to dab the base again, like that. Okay. I still feel like I'm losing some of that yellow. I might bring up some of that paint just to get some highlights, because it's kind of all blending together at this point. So let's try that again. Okay. So I'm gonna wait for that part to dry, and then I think I'm gonna do some dots. Now, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna lift all that color up. We're gonna work wet on dry. I am going to make it yellow. I'm gonna do a base of yellow. We're gonna wait for it to dry completely, and then we will do the shading part, because every time it bleeds, it kind of bleeds all over the whole circle and it doesn't give that separation that I want. Okay, now that it's dry, I'm gonna take my yellow ochre color and I'm just gonna do some dots around here. There we go. And then around the center here, like that. Okay, same thing over here. Oh, that's the brown one, yellow ochre. Here we go. We'll go back in with the brown too. And then around the center, like that. Give it a bit of shadow. Just creating some texture for that middle. And I'm even taking like a little bit of that cadmium yellow and just going over top of the highlighted part, making dots. Like that. Okay, we're gonna wait for that to dry and we might do it again. In the meantime, I'm gonna take a little bit of this burnt umber and I'm going to darken around here, just do some little lines, like this brown is kind of making its way into the petals a bit. Just add a bit more shadow so you can tell that it's really dark and shadowy as it gets closer to that center. Okay. That. Okay. You can bleed into that center just a bit too. like that. And this just kind of adds a bit more of a realistic feel to it. I might even add a bit more black into that brown mix. Just get even more of a shadow. Just little dots and lines like that. It just adds a lot more dimension and shading to it. That makes sense. That was a bit too much. That's okay. Okay. There we go. And then I'm just going to take a really light wash and maybe just define some of the petals. Just create a bit more shadow with this black wash. Just a bit more, just to define the petals a bit more. Okay. This isn't necessary. You can do it if you want, you don't have to. Bringing them up into the petals a bit more. Yeah. Okay, and then the same over here. Oops. Just really using that light pressure with your brush so they're not harsh lines. Like that. Okay, then I'm going to take a bit more of that burnt umber color and I'm just going to do a couple, oops, I meant to use the one over here, mix it with the yellow a bit, and then just do a couple more dots just to make it a bit darker. There and there. Like that. Okay. I think it's looking a bit more realistic to me, don't you think? Okay, so now we're just gonna work a bit more on those leaves. I feel like the green is a bit too bright for me, so I might actually add a bit of burnt umber to my sap green to make it a bit more of a browny green. And I'm just gonna do some shading with the tip of my brush. Just going over some lines. Just giving it a bit of texture so it's not too flat. Going up the center. Yeah, I'm not really fond of that green that I used, but that's okay. And then I'm gonna go back in with some darker green. So I'm just gonna make a bit of darker green. So hooker's green and then muting it with that purple. And then I'm just gonna add some of that darker green to where the base of those leaves kind of meet the stems. And there you go. There are your watercolor daisies. Thank you all so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram and Facebook for even more. Have a great day, guys. Bye.